So what is happening right now is nothing new. But experts are now telling us this is not going to end because President Biden is now threatening Americans using scare tactics. Now, I want to explain what's going on and why you should be well aware of what's going on at this time, because we are about to see more and more reports and updates like this because we are less than 1 year away from a presidential election. So big things are going to happen. Some lawmakers are going to use certain scare tactics to try to get the American people to vote for them or possibly against others. But this is something that is going to happen. So I want to be very clear. We need to understand what is going on and the truth behind all these stories. So that's what I'm going to do today. If you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. But all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. So first off, why would the president decide to threaten the American people and use scare tactics? Well, it's simple. If people believe that President Biden has their best interest at heart, they are likely to vote for him. Here's the other problem. There's so many issues, so many crises around the world that stuff has to happen. People want to see action. One thing that we've seen a lot of inaction on is in between Israel and Hamas, where the people of Gaza are losing their lives. But this has nothing to do with that. Here's what we need to know. President Biden, he says we need to help Ukraine now or send Americans to fight Russia with NATO later. He said that earlier this month. Think about that. We have to help Ukraine now, or we're going to send Americans, send people like you and I, to go fight Russia with NATO later. That's a concern. That is a threat. That either you help fund Ukraine now, or you go and fight. Those are your options. Now, here's where things get a little more interesting. According to the Russian President Vladimir Putin, he says he does not want a war with NATO countries. He said that just today. He doesn't want a war with NATO countries. Why would he? He doesn't. Again, keep in mind, one of the things that you need to understand is if somebody attacks one NATO country, it's an attack on all NATO countries. Okay? But here's what President Biden has said. He has said that with Russia potentially winning over Ukraine if we don't send additional funding, if Ukraine loses, Russia is one step closer to NATO countries. Well, Russia is very close anyway, but this puts them around more NATO countries, and that's the concern. Now, according to one of Vladimir Putin's spy chiefs, he says Ukraine could become a second Vietnam for the U.S. as it drags on resources. Just to give you an idea, the West have given Ukraine about $246 billion since the start of this war, which started back in February of 2022. So we're coming up on 2 years there. But, and this is, I want to read you this quote that he gave. This is from Sergei Naryshkin. He's the head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service. He said, Ukraine will turn into a black hole, absorbing more and more resources and people. And here's the thing. This has been, not these exact words, but this sentiment has been brought up before, that we continue to send additional aid and military equipment into Ukraine. The problem is, if they don't know how to use the equipment and they ruin the equipment, which a lot of it has been, well, that's on us. Now we just lost all that equipment and all that money that we spend over in Ukraine to help them try to win this war. Is it actually going to the right places? In reports recently, over the past 3 months, we have seen that a lot of the money that we have sent it's paying for businesses. It's almost like it's a stimulus payment just to keep a business afloat. That's what we're paying for. Paying for farmers. We're paying for all these just random things. And right now, lawmakers are asking for answers. They want to know, where is this money actually going? The problem is, nobody knows. Now, I want to show you this map, because this map is important. You can see where Russia is right here, okay? So you see all these different NATO countries, and they're then the ones in color. Now here's Ukraine. Here's the problem. If Russia wins, and again, Russia is next to Finland, who was just recently put into NATO, right? Russia is close to NATO countries. But the problem is, if Russia wins over Ukraine, now they're next to more NATO countries. Okay? They're next to more, and that's a big deal. But it's Finland. Finland's the one that they're questioning right now. And I want to explain why. Okay? First off, here's what President Biden had to say a little while ago. He said, if Putin attacks a NATO ally, if he keeps going and then he attacks a NATO ally, well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory. Okay, well, here's what you need to understand. Following the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Sweden and Finland both applied for NATO membership. But, according to Putin, he says NATO dragged Finland into the alliance. That NATO dragged a country in. It wasn't that they wanted to, they dragged them in. Well, as far as Sweden, their application, this is as of earlier this month here in December of 2023, that as far as Sweden's application, it's being held up by Hungary and Turkey, who have refused to support Sweden joining NATO. That's what we know at this time. So again, President Biden is threatening the American people that you either support the funding going to Ukraine, or you come out and fight, because those are your two options. But I want to be very clear on this. And I said this before, that yes, President Biden is almost setting us up for an all-out war, an all-out attack. But here's the thing. We don't have to. We can fund Ukraine if we want to, or we don't fund Ukraine, and yes, Ukraine will likely lose the war and Russia will take it over. But according to experts over the past almost 2 years, they have said even with the Western funding, Ukraine has no shot of winning this war. All we're going to do is kick the can down the road. As we keep sending money to Ukraine, all we're doing is kicking the can down the road. Eventually, Russia will take over Ukraine. And as of right now, some are saying that maybe that is the best option, because we cannot keep funding another country. Eventually, the funds are going to run out. And does it make sense to keep spending, tens or hundreds of billions of dollars for another country when we have problems right here on U.S. soil? That's what the American people want the answers on. They want to know, is our border secure? If our border isn't secure, why are we sending $100 billion to another country? If we can't pass legislation here in the United States, then why are we trying to pass legislation for other countries? There's a lot of questions right now, but one of the big questions is, how far will lawmakers go to use scare tactics on the American people to try to get them to do what they want them to do? I just wanted to fill you in on what's happening at this time, but just understand, this will not end. This is something we see every single year we have an election. Whether it's a midterm election or a presidential election, we see these scare tactics. So, I just wanted to let you know, as of right now, the expectation is that Russia would never attack the United States. But could there be a misstep, a miscalculation, where Russia accidentally attacks a NATO member? Yes. And that's the concern. Because again, if we look at this map, there is now more people around, well, except for Ukraine. But if Russia wins over Ukraine right here, There's now more NATO members surrounding Russia, and that's the concern. It would be a miscalculation. So that's where we're at this time. As soon as we know more, I promise I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. But again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.